And time now to look at the newspapers and some of the stories making the headlines this morning. We start off with the Daily Graphic and the big story there. Government launches the Planting for Food and Jobs campaign, phase 2. That's what the Daily Graphic is reporting of this morning. There's also the story about the controller freezes CTAG members' salaries. It's on page 13 of the Daily Graphic. And then another big story, leaked tape on IGP's removal. Tape is authentic, contains my voice. And that's the affirmation from Bugri, Naabu, as the committee set up by the Speaker of Parliament probing plots against the IGP. Of course, they sat yesterday, and these are some of the excerpts that we are learning of now. Adainimo Ejako ready for runoff, and Best Farmer advises youth to embrace agribusiness. That's the story we have on the Daily Graphic for today. Joining us for a conversation on this is lawyer Bobby Bunsen. He'll be speaking some of the stories shortly, but we also have a bit more papers here. The Finder is also reporting of public sector workers without Ghana card to ditch first day of free NIA registration. It's a story that comes with a picture of Professor Kenneth Tefua. Everything on plot against IGP audio is valid. That's according to Bugri, as I pointed out, is also featuring on the front page of the Finder newspaper. The deputy CEO of NPA, a judged outstanding female in oil and gas. So Linda Asante is also featuring on the front page of the Finder newspaper. But obviously that talk has got to do with the Planting for Food and Jobs phase 2, which is set to provide input credit system for some 1.2 million farmers in the first year of rollout. And that was launched by President Akufo-Addo there in your pictures. The Economy Times is here this morning. BOG to tighten policy rate further. And it appears that it's as part of moves by the central bank to ensure that the fiscal consolidation of the country is on course. But we broke that story. To you here on the Joy News channel that Ghana could be joining BRICS soon, and BRICS is basically an economic bloc, an alliance of Brazil, Russia, India, China and South Africa. It appears that more African countries want to tap into the vast opportunities here, which is being reported on the Economy Times. Some public sector workers to lose their September salary, and it's also got to do with the NI card or registration blues, as we're learning of, and we'll be getting into the details for you shortly. But I also want to bring to you the Daily Guide newspaper. The Daily Guide is talking about, first of all, John Dramani Mahama poking into the affairs of the New Patriotic Party, with the former president stating his stance on some of the alleged attacks on some agents of presidential aspirants that went into last weekend's special delegates Congress. But the Planting for Food and Jobs campaign phase 2 is also featuring on the front page of the Daily Guide. Bugri, Naabu's Bombshell, I recorded the IGP tape. So he's confirming that he only recorded, gave it to the president. As to how that got into the public, the rest is, something that amazes him. NPP NEC decides last position runoff, and that will be happening today as the party is set to meet all presidential aspirants. And also some individuals have been invited to appear before the political or the election committee of the governing New Patriotic Party over some comments or outbursts that were seen on social media. The National Health Insurance Authority gets $25 million World Bank boost, and these are some of the stories we have making the round. So let's start off on this note. Lawyer Bobby Bunsen is with us, joining us for some discussion on some of the stories making the rounds. And lawyer, I want us to start off with the Planting for Food and Jobs phase 2. It's good news that some 1.2 million farmers will be benefiting from this campaign. but we need to look at it from the perspective of phase one. Would you say that that was a success? And going into phase two, what's your expectation?
To you and viewers and your team, I was elated when I heard the news, but like you rightly said, judging from the issues that we had with the phase one, we are hoping that they would have learned their lesson. Was it a failure? Was it a success? I think that it was an attempt that is worth emulating. It's the first time we are having such a project. Definitely, there will be challenges, and we all acknowledge that there were serious challenges. But if the government has decided to go ahead with the phase two, then it means that they must have taken into consideration some of the pitfalls or the challenges they faced with implementing the phase one. And they cannot repeat those same mistakes. Then they would have no excuse. And so we can only hope that they have actually planned this out very well, better than they did. Mind you, there's a new minister in charge, and so perhaps with hindsight of some of the challenges that his predecessor had with implementing the phase one, he would be able to put together a better, a well-implemented project. Because if the planting for food succeeds, it is not beneficial to only members of a certain tribe or a certain class or a certain political party. It will benefit all of Ghanaians. We are here when the COVID at its heights, we really complain about food shortages. If this is able to go on well, the benefits will be enormous in terms of the foreign exchange earnings from the export, the employment, and all that comes with it. So we only hope that the new minister and his team, they have really sat down, thoroughly thought through it.
I agree with you on that, about the phase two of the project and what you're looking up to. The former Greek minister, Dr. Okoto-Efrie, would obviously disagree with you when it comes to the impact. We all recall that controversial comment he made that a bunch of plantain could go for as low as 2 or 3 Ghana cedis. That's to suggest that if you ask government officials, they will tell you that the phase one indeed has been successful.
Well, the beneficiaries of the planting for food was not the government officials. It was mainly the farmers and those that consume the farm produce. And if they say that, listen, prices, the statistical services were very clear. For a very long period, inflation was influenced. The cost of inflation or the rising inflation figures was mainly influenced by the cost of products. And if the whole idea of the planting for food was to make sure that there was enough produce, there was employment and all of that. And those that are supposed to benefit from it, most of them, as at least judged by the report of the statistical services, will tell you that prices of food items kept going up within that same period that the government officials said that they had enough. And so what they say normally will not be, and this is an instance, what may be a fair reflection. Like I said, I will not write it off as being a failure. The fact that they were bold enough to initiate such a project with all the challenges that we anticipated is commendable. We can only encourage them that all the pitfalls that the first phase encountered will not be repeated in the second phase.
And obviously, we're looking forward to that. The images we see on the screen reminds us of the open market the Greek ministry did. The claim was that it was about the markets and not necessarily, the produce. Output, they say, was high. That was the argument at the time, but we'll wait to see. And it's also a prelude to our conversation because we'll be looking at issues relating to our high import bills as a country, especially when it comes to cereals such as rice. And this was supposed to be catered for under the Planting for Food and Jobs campaign. Let's now talk about politics too, because today there's a lot on the table of the New Patriotic Party. We know that the party's neck will be meeting. The presidential aspirants will also be engaging the Elections Committee. And then there is the attempt by the Elections Committee to seal the cracks after last weekend's special delegates conference. I'm just wondering if you're looking at what's playing out and if the NPP indeed has hold and holds of all the individuals who went into the race, and if the party has the ability now to rein them in. What's your thought on that?
Well, I think that we have come to expect that during internal competitions of this nature, emotions are very high. Certain comments are made in the heat of the competition and the campaign, which are regrettable. Certain actions or inactions are regrettable. I think that when I saw the statement by the General Secretary of the NPP immediately after the election, I was quite impressed. It shows that they will not take things for granted, and irrespective of your perceived clout or stature in the party, you'll be subject to the policies or the guidelines of the party. If they are able to discipline their own members as a result of flouting their internal campaigning rules, I want to believe that it will send a good signal to the general public. They would carry the same level of discipline to a general election. This is the initial stages in terms of the statement by the General Secretary that they are going to investigate and then deal with those that are found culpable. I hope that they will not just brush it under the carpet. Let's know that, okay, we have finished the investigations, these are the outcome, but maybe for the sake of so and so and so, this is how we want to treat it. And I'm looking forward to something like that. I think that Saturday generally was commendable. It's maybe the numbers that voted were not much. We just hope that it would the kind of, to a large extent, I would say that yes, there were pockets of incidents that are regrettable, but to a large extent it was peaceful. That it will be reflected when they go into November 4th. But if those that were seen to have perpetuated these pockets of violence or regrettable incidents are not dealt with, then they will be emboldened to repeat it.
I see.
In the November 4th elections, and that will be on a larger scale.
Your description is that this was largely peaceful. I like the way the Daily Guide newspaper captures that right on top there, indicating that Mahama pokes into NPP affairs. And of course, we know what all that has got to talk about. It's his concerns on, the violence, alleged violence that was visited on some individuals. The concern also about how, in his view, the NPP is becoming, quote unquote, a violent political party. The question is, why would you have the flag bearer of an opposition party not busying himself with campaigning, but is quite interested in a super delegates conference, which may not be the ultimate after all?
Well, it's politics. In politics, you do not only celebrate your own victories, you celebrate the downfall, or in any competition, as it were, let me put it that way. You do not only celebrate your own victories, you celebrate the downfall of your opponent. And I'm sure he's just only politicking. I do not think that the NDC will escape criticisms when it comes to some of these incidents, and neither would the NPP. And when it happens, they take a go at each other, and we have to come to accept it.
Okay, now to Parliament, because on the front page of the Daily Graphic, we now know that it's confirmed, and as we're seeing there, that the tape is authentic, contains my voice. That's according to Daniel Bugri Naabu. Many of us did not know he was Daniel. Now we know he's Daniel Bugri Naabu, who's the former Northern Regional Chairperson of the New Patriotic Party, and it's got to do with the plot against the IGP. Claims that some individuals within the police service are planning to, have him removed. I'm even looking at the remit of the committee in Parliament, by the way. Do you feel that anything will come of this, knowing that Bugri Naabu is a private individual? When it comes to the removal of the service persons, that decision would have to be an executive one. What's your take?
That's that. Parliament are very jealous of their powers, and any attempt to suggest otherwise may be treated as contempt of Parliament. Mm-hmm. I want to be careful that they will not haul us to.
But I mean, it's fair to criticize because we are paying the bills. We are paying the bills. Whatever meeting happens, whatever sitting happens at the parliamentary committee level. Yeah, we need to question their motive, actually.
Yes, the Speaker of Parliament is a very experienced lawyer. The deputy speakers are also very experienced lawyers. I believe that they would have looked at their the remit of their ability to investigate such matters and set up a committee. They have done that. All the people, at least as at this stage, that have been summoned, have not raised or resisted the appearance on the basis of illegality or unconstitutionality of the committee. I am following with keen interest what their recommendations would be, particularly, as you said, some of the powers that, or some of the end result would lie with the executive, what they decide to do with the person that may be affected.
Yeah,
so
but that's true. But that's true on the grounds of law as well, because you're a lawyer, so you have a better understanding.
Of course, like I said, that aspect is what I am waiting to see at the end of their committee report, whether they are going to recommend or whatever they recommend to be done, because they do not have the power. When I say they, I mean the parliament. They do not have the power to implement the recommendation that may come out of this committee. So that was why I was asking myself, did they have to do it in the first place? But perhaps, for what it is worth, they have decided to engage in this exercise. If at the end of the day they recommend to the executive and the executive does not do it, what will happen? What then would happen? And so I'm interested in the end result and how all of this.
I'm saying that basically because Bugri Naabu is indicating to the parliamentary committee that he indeed gave the tapes to the president. This is the number one gentleman who had all the powers to do whatever he could have done with this audio, leaked audio, they say. But nothing happened. So what's going to change after a parliamentary seating?
Let's wait. Maybe a lot can change.
Maybe. Let's wait. Let's wait. I'm patient enough, lawyer. Okay. BOG to tighten policy. Yes.
Maybe the president may have had discussions with the Speaker of Parliament at that level. We never know.
Yeah.
So let's see what the end game would be.
Yeah, they're very good friends too, we understand. They're very good friends, the Speaker and the President. We know that too well. Okay, BOG to tighten policy rate further. But what's of interest to me as well is the central bank governor as well. His ultimatum is expiring today. The opposition political party giving him some 21 days, I believe, to just leave office. But he seems to be working. We give him more time, isn't it?
Sometimes I find it difficult with the way we approach some issues like this. The thing is, we always say that we want to build strong institutions, not personalities, right?
Yeah.
So that the whatever we do will not have individuals overriding the general interest of the populace. Now, the Bank of Ghana governors, because they are going after the head of the governor and his deputies, right? They came up with their report of what they have done over the period. I do not see those criticizing their work, criticizing the processes and the procedures that were adopted. You see, if we want to build strong institutions that would outlive individuals, then when we are criticizing issues like this, I believe that our focus should be on the institutions and the processes and the structures that the institutions have in place instead of the personalities. Okay, and so we are asking the Bank of Ghana governor and his deputies to resign because they mismanaged the Bank of Ghana, whatever as they say. If they resign, and so what? So one of the issues is that they are building a head office for $250 million, right? If the Bank of Ghana governors resign, would the project halt?
Interesting question.
Does it mean that the contractors that have been issued with the contract, the land that has been purchased, are we going to reverse all that has been done because the governors have resigned? I was hoping that we will actually be interested in criticizing, if there is any reason to criticize. Maybe the processes, okay, did they breach procurement laws? Did they, in mismanaging or the alleged, I think they said they funded some government activities. Were there breaches of any constitutional or regulatory prescriptions? If that is so, are there remedies under those laws that have been perceived?
And I guess it's the opinion of the NDC that this has got to do much more with leadership. Bring in a new face, a new individual, and things might change.
Who will appoint the new individual?
We know how it happens. The president will make that decision
Exactly.
eventually.
So if you said the president appointed these sets of governors, for which reason they were kowtowing to the demands of the executive, you are asking that they be removed so that Parliament will appoint new Bank of Ghana governors or the same president. So that is why I'm saying that, yes, there may be problems and the minority would have a legitimate cause. I'm not saying that they do not have a legitimate cause to question some of the decisions of the leaders. But you see, the decisions of an institution like the Bank of Ghana does not rest with the governor. They have a board, and it is mandatory.
Yeah,
so
but leadership, someone's got to pay the price at least.
That is what I'm saying. And then what? Because that is how we have approached all our issues for a larger part of the Fourth Republic.
Yeah.
And where has it taken us?
Well,
yes, we have leadership problems, but if we are trying to cause a change, I think that it goes beyond just mere the personalities, because it is the office that we are looking at. I don't think the minority has a personal problem with the governors per se, but it is the office and what they believe has been done with that office. So what structures are being recommended to make sure that even if these persons go and the president appoints a new person, that new person will not kowtow to the caprices of the executive as is being alleged now.
Yeah, strong institutions. Strong institutions. I guess that's what you're calling for. Let's wrap up with this, possibility. It's a possibility because that's where it remains. That Ghana could join BRICS soon. Brazil, Russia, India, and China, South Africa. They are reaching out to the rest of the continent. Over 60 heads of state were in Johannesburg, of course. And part of the reasons why we're seeing lots and lots of African countries such as Ghana join this is because of the development bank, which the Economic Times is also reporting of. The fact that BRICS Bank is in the offing and will be giving credit to, the developing nations. But is that the optimum way for us, out of this whole economic challenge that we're facing?
Like they said, if you are not at the table, and they are making some of these decisions that will affect you, then your voice will not be heard. I do not think that it's a bad idea for Ghana to aspire to be there, looking at the countries that are there and the role that they play in international commerce and finance and what comes with it. If Ghana is able to meet all the conditions and to be placed, I think in the long term, it will help businessmen, because if there's these access to financing to help projects that will be beneficial to businessmen or government, I think that is a good platform. If we will be able to satisfy all the conditions and it will not conflict with any prior international obligations or treaty that we have signed as a country, why not?
My concern is about China, actually, the country controlling over a third of our external debt. We seem to be going back there for more money. It's all about the money, isn't it? And in the end, we'll be much more in debt.
Well, it goes back to the famous statement by the president during the campaign, to which we are sitting on money, but we are hungry.
I think you should use the local expression. It makes it, sound really weightier.
Well, I don't have the voice. It will sound better if
yeah, it is a castle.
At the end of the day, we've always said that as a country, I don't think that either MPP or NDC will reject it. We need to move away from constantly relying on external assistance in the terms of lending to be able to solve our national issues. If it is said that for every 1 cedi that is generated in Ghana, 50 pesos go to pay interest on loans, then where are we going as a country? And so if some of these platforms or groups would assist us, maybe wipe some of our debt, renegotiate the interest rates as we have it, and all of that, then it will be good, so that we move forward, away gradually from over-reliance on foreign aid in the form of borrowing at exorbitant interest rates.
The Ghana card blues back this time around in the public sector, with the NIA announcing on the Economic Times, which is captured here, that public sector workers, some of them may lose their September salary simply because they do not have the cards and the NIA wants to bite hard. we're in for another round of long queues, chaotic scenes at the headquarters of the NIA, isn't it? How do we even simplify this whole registration process? We still don't have a solution yet.
Okay, so let's see. I think that the NIA perhaps could open more centers. Maybe they are not opening more centers because
no, lawyer. Sorry for cutting through, but to be fair to the NIA, they are present now in almost, if not almost, every single district across the country. That they have done, we know.
Yes, but how many centers would they have in a district? Like I said, they've done better for the past 3-4 years. They've been more accessible and they've done better. But I think that if my memory serves me right, the NIA had given deadlines upon deadlines for the public servants to go and register to meet this requirement. Let's not forget that the aim of this exercise is to weed out, there's a term that they have, ghost names from the payroll. I think so. So that, like they always say, there are people who are paid government salaries at the end of the month and they do not work, they do not show up. And so if the NIA, as the Supreme Court has said, is undertaking an exercise that will legitimize the credibility of the database in terms of who actually is employed by the system, it should be encouraged. And any form of support or cooperation that these workers can give, they should be able to. Maybe we should look at a stage where there may be some days off for some group of persons so they can go and join the queues, so that they cannot say that, look, we had to go to work and we still had to go and register. So there was that conflict of timing. So that if they can have a system where either the NIA goes to the offices to register the persons, or persons are given some hours off to go join the queue and make sure that they are registered. But I think it's a good exercise, and the necessary cooperation should be given by the unions so that this would see the light of the day.
But to be fair, also to the public sector workers, I mean, losing your salary simply because you don't have a Ghana card?
In our country or as a people, sometimes that is the only way we do the right thing. Until we are. But remember the issue of the re-registration of the thing. What's it called? The chip.
Yeah.
We had to go back and forth, and sometimes. So maybe they will not carry out their threats, but at least if people know that their inability to register would mean that they will lose. And we are not talking about this month's salary. We are in August. So they have at least 20 days to register or to get a card. And I believe that if anybody is actually serious to do that, 20 days should be enough, unless there are logistical challenges with the NIA itself. But 20 days should be enough for any person to avoid the penalty that comes with not having registered or obtained a card.
Yeah. We seem not to be over with this issues and cases of assault in our senior high schools. Another very touching and gory picture, so I can't show it to you now, of how a second-year student at the Nkotia Presby Senior High School has gone partially blind simply because we are learning now that, she was slapped by the assistant headmaster of the school. Whatever the case may be, the pictures don't look good, and I'm not sure anyone would say, well, she might have done wrong, so go ahead and visit. That kind of, attack on her. The pictures don't look good at all. How do we put an end to this in our schools? You recall the latest being in Fan Stream School, yes?
Adisadel, I think.
Yeah, yes. Forgive me. Yes.
And I'm very biased because I'm a proud.
I know. Mobers will not forgive me for this.
And the story from Adisadel really shook, us. But generally, these are incidents that, not that I'm saying is right. Sometimes when, for example, I heard the Adisadel story, like what you are saying now, I think they are only coming to public knowledge because of social media and the work of the media. These are things that have existed over time. When we went to school, there are incidents of bullying, perhaps not to that extent, but we have all of these. I think that there should be, and we had it in Adisadel when we were there, a counseling sort of sessions, unit, department. I remember in our time there was a professional counselor. She was called Miss Fuga or so. were issues like this, because sometimes the persons that actually carry out these heinous, if there's any word that will qualify it, acts, have psychological or emotional problems.
Yeah.
And if you don't identify the root source, it will keep repeating itself. Because you see, the aim of punishment in criminal jurisprudence, or whatever you call it, is also to reform the person. And so if in our secondary schools we do not have these counseling departments or these of whatever form, that when stories like that come out, it is so. For example, with the Adisadel issue, the alleged perpetrator is facing criminal charges. He was writing, or he's writing in secondary school, the final exams, I'm told. Now, have we thought of the impact? Yes, he has done something that we all condemn, but if we take him through that processes without an avenue for reformation, remember that gentleman is definitely will be less than 20 years. What kind of society are we presenting ourselves to him to be? Because it is not every child that starts off like that, that ends up like that. How, as a society, we're able to put up structures that would reform or give them the opportunity to be reformed is very key. And I think that in discussing these matters, we should ask ourselves whether the Ghana Education Service has actually a policy that will require secondary schools to have these departments that beyond the punishment or the chastising or whatever we call it, there will be avenues for reformatory exercises on some of these victims, and then the accused persons. And like I said, in Adisadel, I remember because there were incidents where some students engaged in some of these acts were first taken to the disciplinary committee, and then Ms. Fuger's department, the counseling department, stepped up and reformed or took these students through some form of counseling over time. Yeah. And I think the day some of them have become one I know is a very is an army officer in Britain. Wow. And if we had left him to his rot and punished him and ostracized him, perhaps he would not have fulfilled his full potential. So maybe the GS should look at some of these things as well. Okay.
Disadel, of course, is featuring so much for the obvious reasons. But lawyer, let's round off with the story on our sub-regional happenings, because the Niger military regime appears to be strengthening their grip on power, and that's threatening the entire sub-region. We know of the standoff between the Republic of France and Niger right now. Things are not looking good. The ambassador being ordered to leave, and she says she's staying put. This is someone's country, by the way. Why not leave in peace so we can, of course, stabilize the West Africa sub-region?
Well, I think the events in these countries, I have been to some of these countries that have suffered these things, the line of my work, and the poverty levels are grave, especially in the context of the resources that they have. And if you look at the fact that the colonial arrangements or the independence arrangement they had with France requires that they keep their reserves there. They give them right of first refusal. Listen, something must give. And some way, somehow, at the end of the day, if the revolution results in giving true independence, not only on paper, but economic independence, political independence, to the countries so that they can actually manage their affairs for the betterment of their people. Listen, this may sound controversial, but I'm all for it.
I was just about saying that. You least expect that from a lawyer, but I guess you're saying that based on the kind of connection that these French West African countries have with their colonial master, the French government. Yes.
If you compare Rwanda, and I always say this, as we sit now, we hail what is happening in Rwanda as the icon of, or a perfect example for the African continent. But how many times have you read news of foreign interference in the affairs of Rwanda? How long has Kagame being head of state and then being president. But because we are seeing the results of his actions, everybody is quiet on how he got there.
Yeah.
And so if you have a system where, you see, today we talk about Thomas Sankara as being one of the perfect examples of what a right revolutionarist can do when given power. But his term was short-lived. Why? Because the West, or those that thought that he was trying to change the narrative, were not happy. We talk about what happened in Congo, the gentleman who was brutally murdered by forces backed by the
Lumumba, you say.
And how long have we, or would we continue to suffer these things because, you know, we are where we are? I think that we need, and it's like it started in the Arab Spring, it's coming down. If the people that are given political power do not use it for the benefit of the citizens, it's only a matter of time that somebody will.
Lawyer Bobby Manson, thank you for spending some time with us for the newspaper review. Grateful. And good morning once again. Okay, we're now checking out of the newspapers, but next is sports. It's coming your way shortly. Please stay.